Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Gone are the days of wrestling with our favorite LJN wrestling figures, trying to convince them to stand up. What's a guy to do? I'll tell you what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get on Etsy and look up 4 Left 3D Creations and get yourself these amazing custom LJN figure stands. There is a custom stand available for every single one of your LJN Wrestling Superstar figures. Make your display shine by grabbing these custom LJN stands from 4 Left 3D Creations today.
Hello, everybody. Jason of New Age Revolution in the Cave. On a beautiful 92-degree September day. Nothing wrong with that, folks. No, indeed. No, indeed. We got to talk about wrestlers today. Yeah, it's the LJN's revisited. The LJN Wrestling Superstars, greatest toy line of all time, taking a closer look at each figure one by one, talking about the memories of the figures, the years and years and years of play that certainly ended in adulthood. But first I just want to give a much-deserved shout out, which I hate that phrase, a much-deserved recognition, re-recognition to a couple of people who are so important to the LJN collecting community. The first person just joined the family, a month ago or so. 4 Left 3D Creations, who are responsible for changing the way we display our figures with these custom LJN stands. They're fantastic. I suggest you get them. They change the way your shelf looks. They change the way your display looks. The other person is XOX Net, my friend Net at XOX, who has, when I'm promoting her work, the descriptions that I use are 100% legitimate. There's no salesmanship hokiness going on. Yes, I perform a little bit for you guys, but that's just what the channel does. She changed LJN collecting. She changed it. So much so that you have people who are heavily involved in the wrestling business and heavily involved in the figure collecting business. You have people who are buying up, prototypes at $10,000 a piece and proudly displaying them, who are now taking the LJNs and recreating them. And honestly, I think they saw Net's work. I think they saw XOX's work. I don't know where, maybe here. This channel was mentioned on this person's podcast when the Power Town figures came out, and I had the interview with Steve Rosenthal. This channel and that interview was mentioned on that podcast. So why would part of me not think that this person discovered how great, good LJN remakes can be, and then they decided to do it with licensing and all that stuff? So XOX's figures, Print Fury's figures, are that good. Okay, they no longer deserve to be called customs. They really don't. And I hated customs before I met Net. Hated them. And I'm sorry to anybody who makes custom figures. I think everybody's art is wonderful. It just didn't do it for me. Okay, I was 100% serious when I told you that I saw customs of 2 Hillbilly Jim figures being painted differently and called the Moondogs. Tito Santana was painted black and given a different head, and that was Mr. T. Jimmy Snuka was painted a goatee and was called the Tonga Kid. Greg Valentine was painted into an Undertaker. Okay. Captain Lou Albano is repainted into Mick Foley. Cactus Jack. And so on and so on and so on. All right. Somebody takes an original Hulk Hogan and paints an NWO black t-shirt on it and calls it NWO Hogan. I just can't. I hated customs. I hated them. And then that came along and remade LJN figures. Okay? Remade LJN figures. This is not a custom figure. This is not a customized figure. This is a remade LJN figure. This is a brand new figure, exclusive from any other figure in the world. Okay? These are not customs. So they changed the game. They changed the collecting game. And many of you are fully on board with that and purchase most, if not all, of her figures. My collecting world, my collecting has changed because of Net. So I can't thank her enough. And 4 Left 3D Creations is now changing the way I obsess about displaying the figures. Without these two people, we would be without as collectors. Without them, we would have voids that were not there before. Whatever that means. Now that we have lived with them, we can't live without them, is what I'm saying. All right, so I just wanted to say that. Appreciate, respect, and love the two people that have added such awesomeness to our collections. 100%. Now let's talk about Jimmy Snuka, ladies and gentlemen. Jimmy Snuka, the final figure of Series 1. That's right, Series 1. Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Now, I think I got Snuka Christmas 85. Christmas 85 is when I got the rest of the figures. And I want to say except Snuka. I just feel like Snuka was so hard to find. But did I get it? I don't know. So Christmas 85, I got Stud, Nikolai. I got the rest of Series 1. Okay, I only had Hogan and Andre up to Christmas 85. So for months, how many months? I don't know. I can't remember. But for months, I only had Hogan and Andre. Then I got Stud, Sheik, Piper, Hillbilly, Nikolai, and maybe one more. Did I get Snuka Christmas 85 or did I get him in 86? I can't remember. But remember, there was a time when Snuka was just hard to find. I don't know if it had to do with his, departure from the WWF. Remember, he's gone soon. So I'm in February 85. We know Snuka shows up at WrestleMania. What does he do post WrestleMania? We'll see. Is he just gone? Obviously, we could look it up, but that's not what we do on the channel. Is he just gone? I don't know. Great looking figure. Great looking figure. I think this is LJN's, first, well, it is. It's their first thinner figure. You had Sheik, you had Stud, you had Andre, you had Hogan. And now we've got kind of the skinny creation from LJN. And this pose, as we've grown to know, this pose was going to be very similar to the Sergeant Slaughter figure that was also supposed to come out in Series 1. This hand would have been the salute, and then this hand would have been down. But we were going to get kind of two very similar figure poses. Jimmy Snuka was not a figure that I played with a lot because he was gone. He was gone. And so I didn't play with him. You know, that's the way a 9-year-old's brain works. Jimmy Snuka's not there, so I didn't play with him. But it is a great figure. It's a great looking figure. We'll take a closer look at it in a minute. The most famous experience that has to do with Jimmy Snuka is the old lady story that I've only told once before. We were camping in '86. We were camping in May of '86. It was my birthday, and I remember that I got more LJN figures. I got Valentine and Beefcake and Orndorff. I got more LJN. We were camping at a campground, and again, times were different. Times were a little different. Me and my sisters were walking around, and I don't know if I was carrying Snuka or carrying wrestlers around or something, but we came across an old lady. And I know that when you're kids, everybody's an old lady, but this was an old lady. 80s. And she had a camper, and she was talking to us somehow. Somehow we were communicating with her, and she noticed the Jimmy Snuka figure. And she talked to me at 9 about, well, I would have been 10, I guess. Talked to me about how much she loved wrestling and how much she loved Jimmy Snuka. And then proceeded to invite us into her camper and showed us that she had, she wasn't wearing them, but she showed us that she had Jimmy Snuka underwear. Which my grown-up mind now just knows that this lady was showing us some leopard print panties at 80. Because they didn't make Jimmy Snuka underwear. They just made leopard panties. So, you know, we left the camper, and I went back to our camper, and I told my mom that I wanted to give the old lady my Jimmy Snuka figure because she was such a fan. And my mother asked, well, how do you know she's a fan? And I told her the story, and I thought my mother was going to lose her mind. That we had become this close to being abducted by an 80-year-old woman in Jimmy Snuka underwear. Fortunately or unfortunately, that's the best story I got for Jimmy Snuka because I didn't play much with his figure. Don't worry, there'll be a lot more memories and stories of figures as we get past. I met Jimmy Snuka a couple of times. Met him in one of my first, autograph photo seeking adventures was an old legend show in Pennsylvania. And I met Jimmy Snuka and took a picture with him. I had him sign my LJN, which is still up there. Had him sign the LJN. And got a photo with him, of course. Looking at the picture, which is buried, I can't find it, but I've looked at it. The pictures, the autographs and the photos were $15 a piece. $15. Which has changed, but it shouldn't change because it's not something that needs to be inflated, right? I guess people have to spend more money in their lives, so they have to charge more money to get more money. I get that part, but I get like food going up and gas prices going up, but autographs go up. Met Jimmy Snuka, nothing to tell. And then the big story, which I've told a million times, is how I bought him dinner. And, that story has been told a million times. It was him and Paul Orndorff. Unfortunately, Paul Orndorff remembered it the next day. Jimmy Snuka had no clue. No idea. But he was thankful that night. Anyway, Jimmy Snuka, LJM, probably got him at Christmas '85. Not a lot of memories with the Superfly. I did have a Fijian strap match with him. I did have that. And that's fun. Strap matches as a kid, I never talked about this, but strap matches as a kid, I used to love having. Chain matches, Russian chain matches, and the strap was just whatever yarn my mom would give me, right? You're 9 years old, you want to have a strap match, and you're like, Mom, I need something. So my deadly strap or my Russian chain was usually like yellow yarn, whatever we had, string, whatever we had. And you would just, I would tape it on their wrists and then have this strap match, which I loved doing that with Snuka because I didn't have to wrestle with Snuka. I didn't have to come up with moves. You just pound the heck out of each other. And this is around the time when I started using red marker on my figures for blood, which my kids loved doing with their AEW figures, which they don't do anymore, of course. But I loved watching my kids mark up their figures with blood because I did it too with the LJNs, and it's awesome. It adds a whole nother element to the match. But anyway, that's Jimmy Snuka. First five, conclude the first five. The only 5 figures with 5 card back or 5 figure card back. The originals, the ones that we, the ones from the commercial, the ones from the very first Bring Home All the Action commercial. Let's take a closer look at Snuka now. All right, here we go. We have the leopard print headband, still in great shape, no wear on that. We've got the the tight Snuka hair, good face, black armbands, skinny torso, ripped, shredded with abs, down to the classic Snuka trunks, black knee pads, bare feet. Love it. I mean, obviously LJN has to give him bare feet, but I just love that they did. I think he and Haku are the only 2 with bare feet, I think. Good looking Snuka. And how do you stand your Snuka on your shelf? With this good looking super fly custom LJN stand from 4 Left 3D Creations. That's right. I always admired the shredded back muscles of Jimmy Snuka's figure too. There you go. There's the Superfly. I think his markings are on his back. Yeah, you can't really see it in the light there, but he's got his whatever it is, markings, his LJN stamp right there on his lower back, and I can't really read it at all. But anyway, there he is. Great figure, great size, great thinness, great play pose, great resemblance. Jimmy Superfly Snuka, ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up Series 1 LJN Wrestling Superstars. Until next time, good night now, brother.